Alright, what is up guys? For this video, to start off, we're going to go and replace the master cylinder on the truck. I got a remanufactured unit sitting down here on the floor, and I just went and pulled the master cylinder reservoir off of the old one to go put on the new one, because the reman units, at least the AutoZone cheapos, don't come with a new reservoir, which isn't a big deal because the reservoirs don't really go bad. And Dodge was nice, and they gave me a black one for this truck, not one of those clear ones that turns all yellow and ugly, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go put that reservoir over on that master. I'm going to bench bleed it and show you guys that, because they actually give you like this little kit to bench bleed this thing, which I thought was pretty cool. So I'll show you guys that. You've literally got two bolts that hold it up to where the brake booster is, and then the two lines, at least on this truck, two lines that come off of it, and that's it. I'm going to spray these down with some rust penetrant before I go and start bench bleeding, just in case they decide they want to fight a little bit. They'll crack open pretty easy. You can tell there's been a lot of brake fluid like spilled putting it in the master, because down there all the paint's rotted off of the booster. So hopefully none of it's like leaking inside of the booster, because that could be an issue, but I guess I'll check that out. After I bled the rear brakes and everything, I've done it twice, and the pedal still feels really mush, and I know that there's a lot of miles on this master, and I don't feel like taking a chance on it and having it just go out on me one day, so I'm just going to put a new one in, have some peace of mind, have one with a lifetime warranty as well, and just in case this one goes bad, I can go replace it. Bleed the brakes and see if that was the issue. If it's not, then I've just got more air pockets somewhere floating around. But I did notice as I was bleeding that this thing didn't pump as much fluid as I would have expected it to while I was bleeding the brakes, so it's probably the master. So yeah, I'm going to go get this reservoir on there, and we'll go bench bleed it, get the old one off, and then I think later, I went and bought some ATF4. I think later we're going to pull the pan off of there and put that drain plug I bought on that transmission pan, so I can actually bleed out or not bleed out, but actually be able to change the transmission fluid like once a week until it starts shifting right, because the fluid in there is very, very bad and it needs it, and there's no drain plug on this transmission pan, which is really annoying. So let's get working on this master cylinder here. Alright, so this bench bleeding setup is pretty straightforward. So basically they give you these hoses that you can see on here, and 4 barb fitting, these clearish ones and then 2 black ones. They also give you a clip you can use to help hold the lines, but I don't think I'm going to need it. And then there's also these 2 plugs that come with the master. They're in the fittings when you get it. Save these because you're going to need them. Basically what you do is you'll fill it with fluid, and then you take these lines, once it's filled with fluid, and stick them inside of each portion of the reservoir and master that they go to. This one I may need the clip for actually. And hold them in so that once it's filled with fluid and you're bench bleeding it, it can't suck any air back up. It can only suck fluid back up. So as you're bench bleeding it, eventually it'll cycle through and there'll be nothing but fluid in it. And all you have to do is fill with fluid, stick these lines in there, and then take a screwdriver of some sort and push the master in and out until, you know, it's cycled all of its air out. That's basically all you have to do. You want to make sure you do this with it off of the vehicle so you can watch it. And then once you're all done, so that it doesn't leak everywhere, take these yellow plugs and stick them back in. Make sure you're wearing gloves when you're dealing with brake fluid. At least if you're doing this much stuff to do with brake fluid, because brake fluid's evil. It doesn't care about you or your hands. Now you can see fluid in the lines, but as I'm pumping it, you can see air bubbles coming out. This would be a lot easier if you had a vise. If you have a vise, definitely use it to hold the master still, because it's a lot of work trying to push this thing forward. Alright, I got the master bench bled and everything. Wow, those are bright. Oh my god. And that's just sitting down here on the floor, so now it's time to go and pull the old one off. Like I said, it's 2 bolts and 2 lines, and the thing just comes off. And I just have to put the new one on and put 2 bolts and 2 lines on, and then just bleed the brakes out, and we'll be all good to go. This Harbor Freight light is awesome. Like, this thing's like lit pretty well, but it's not quite tall enough for the truck, at least how the truck currently sits. So 3 jack stands. I figure if I need the jack stands to work underneath the truck, the lights are going to be used underneath the truck anyway, so this works. In the future, I'm probably going to like make a custom stand or something that sits like up high, way higher than that does. Yeah, let's go get this master off here. Alright, the old master is off and in that box. The new one's on. So you're supposed to drain all the fluids out of stuff before you take it back to the auto parts store for a core. So I was going to dump all the fluid in there, and without thinking, had one of the outlets facing this way. And so first time I squeezed it, it went in like shot, just barely missed these bags because they were sitting up there, and then hit the wheel on the jack and like left a streak. Fortunately, brake fluid evaporates, so it's not a big deal. It's not like it's oil. But here is the new master. New master is in. There is some fluid in it. It's pretty murky looking, but that's because some of that is the oil, like preservative oil, that's put into the master to seal it, and some of that is stuff that was in the bottom of this getting broken loose. So I'm gonna go and flush the brakes out now. I got those 3 bottles of fluid there, and then the one on the floor, it's like a quarter left of it. Gonna do that. Gonna flush, bleed the brakes, and we'll see if my brake pedal still feels like poo. I don't think I'm gonna go out and drive it yet because there's a bunch of snow on the ground, and I plan on doing that oil pan, and I don't want to get a bunch of snow all over the truck and bring it back in here and have it have even more snow on it than it already does and drip all over me. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna go bleed the brakes and then run out to AutoZone, get a gasket and a screen for the transmission, and we'll get started on working on that bunk, this guy right here, so that I can do drain and fills in the transmission. So I'm gonna go clean up my mess a little bit, bleed the brakes, and then we'll start working on the transmission. Alright, I got the paint off. It's sitting right there. I'm going to show you guys that in a second. But one quick piece of advice: if you're taking the transmission pan off one of these trucks, make sure you have a catch pan like I have underneath of it. Whoa, fell over there. Make sure you've got one, because as you can see here, it is near impossible to catch every bit of fluid unless you have some sort of other catch pan or container to catch fluid with that is the size of this pan. Because what happens as you're undoing the pan, it's just going to start leaking around the entire perimeter of that pan, and unless you have that drip containers like huge, like the entire size of the pan is, and you've got it positioned perfect, you're going to spill everywhere. So make sure, if you're concerned about getting a bunch of fluid everywhere, or even if you're not, you don't want to be laying in that when you're putting it back up, just make sure that you have something down there that's actually going to collect fluid, because that's a pretty good amount of fluid. You can see it actually kind of pulled up back there in the corner. Definitely make sure that you've got it all, tightened up and ready to go. Otherwise, you're going to drip and leak everywhere, and it's just going to be a mess. So let's go over here, and I'll show you guys the inside of the pan. I can promise you that this has never been taken off, because it still has the original factory cork gasket in it. All the replacements you get from AutoZone or whatever, as far as I can tell, I've never seen a cork replacement. They're all like the Velcro blue stuff. So being the cork gasket, this thing's probably never been dropped, or if it was a long time ago and it was done by a dealer and they put another cork gasket back in there. There's a little bit of grit in the bottom of this pan, but nothing that concerns me. The magnet has some, like a sludge on it, but it's actually not built up really far. There's no like big metal chunks or anything stuck to the magnet. And then in the bottom of the pan, and I'm not, there you go, now you can see them. Those are probably the little clutch materials from inside of the transmission. There's not a lot in there. There's probably one in particular in there that's been leaving a lot and breaking down. But as you can see, most of it's collected in that one back corner of the pan, and I'm not concerned about that. They're for sure not metal or like a bearing or anything, because if they were, it would have stuck to this magnet eventually. I'll change this fluid and see if maybe the transmission starts to slip after changing fluid out. That looks like clutch material, and if this fluid's never been changed in the 175,000 miles that's on the transmission, that's pretty normal there. Like I said, if these transmissions don't have an actual filter, they just have a screen that prevents the transmission from sucking that stuff back up in. We'll see what it does after changing the fluid. I think the transmission will work just fine as the truck sits. Now once the truck is boosted, we may find the limits of this transmission pretty quick, but we'll just go ahead and see. So now I need to get all this fluid out of here, clean the inside of this thing out the best that I can, and then drill a hole into it and weld a bung in. And then once the transmission is done dripping itself out, I'll go pull that pan out of there, go in and bolt the new drain pan up, or fluid pan up with a drain plug bung on it, which will be nice. But I do need to run out to the parts store and get the gasket and a screen for the transmission because I don't have one here at the moment. It's I forgot to go get one later, so I'll go grab that, come back, and then we'll get working on this transmission pan. Alright, so I've got my gasket and screen sitting down there. I got the old one pulled off, just laying down here in the pan, as well as the bolts. I'm going to go put that in real quick, but I just wanted to show you guys what it looked like real fast in case you've never seen one. This is just a, like I said, it's more of a screen than a filter. I'm not really sure if you would call it a filter, but either way, this just bolts up to the bottom like this and filters fluid. So there's that. I'm going to go put that in a second. Here's the pan. So I've already gone and figured out where I want to put this plug, and I went and sanded all of the paint off of both sides and cleaned it inside and out real good. I didn't clean the outside like all that well. I just sanded the area where I'm going to be welding this bung to. So it's just gonna go in like that basically once I get a hole drilled and sit right there. I wanted it towards the front of the pan since the truck tilts forward. This way when I drain fluid out next time, most of it will be up here towards the front of the pan right there and find its way out. So I'm gonna make sure I have this plug inside of the bung, that way I don't get a bunch of weld inside of the threads on it. I'll take these, it's got a crush washer that came with it too. This is like, I don't know, like $10 on eBay or something. So yeah, there's that. I'm gonna go get a hole drilled, weld that in. I'm gonna roll it on the front and on the back to make sure it's secure and make sure it doesn't leak. And then I'll spray it real quick with this blue crap right here, just so that there's something on it. I don't know if I'm going to spray the inside or not, but I will for sure be spraying the outside of it so that it doesn't rust. I'll be good to go put it back on, or at least get it most of the way on, and then get my pan and everything out from underneath the truck so I can dump all that fluid into a container of some sort, put it in, finish putting it in, fill it with fluid, and then we'll take it for a drive, see how it stops, see how it moves, see how it shifts. And then that'll be just about it. Alright, I got the pan done and the paint on it should be most of the way dry. It looks like it's still a little bit shiny, so it's not all the way done. As you can see, I just used the blue paint. The welds did not come out great, but looks like they will seal. The ones on the inside came out a lot better than the ones on the outside did, because I sealed front and back to make sure it won't leak. And let's see, how does this... Oh, I got the gasket laying on there upside down. I got a Philipro gasket. Put the new screen on, everything's good to go. One thing I'll show you guys, I was so pissed when I did this. So I had this drain pan sitting right here where all this cat litter's at, and I was walking over here with something, not paying attention to what I'm doing, and I went and I stepped right on the edge of this pan and flipped it upside down, and the entire contents of it had probably 2 quarts of just random fluid in it, spilled all over the floor. And fortunately I grabbed the cat litter pan and like was pouring cat litter out around it to contain it, and I've got the entire thing covered. So when I'm all done here, I'm going to have to go and sweep that up, which really is annoying, but at least I had an entire thing of cat litter, and it got stuff all over my like drill and tap and die set down there and on the angle grinder box and stuff, so I had to go wipe all those off. Oh, look at the size of that. There's the paper towels. Look at the size of that. It's just massive. So I'm going to let that sit and cure for a little bit longer. Yeah, that's where we're at. We're almost done here, almost ready to go put some new fluid in it and see how this thing drives and see how the new master cylinder works as well, which will be nice. Alright, I got the truck running. As you can see, I filled it up earlier. I just checked it and the fluid was still low once I got it running in neutral and everything, so I went and added half a quart to it. I'm waiting for some of the excess fluid that's in the dipstick tube to drain out so that the dipstick's actually reading properly. See where it's at there, and then see if I need to put the other half a quart in or if it's good where it's at. And of course there's going to be a bunch of smoke because I leaked a whole bunch of transmission fluid all over the Y pipe when I was working on it. I think most of it's burned off. Got this cleaned off. I don't know how well you guys can see because it's kind of dark because I got some of the lights turned off. Cleaned my mess up. So hopefully in like a minute or two, that drain plug will be to where I can actually check it and see where the fluid level's at. And then we'll go take it for a drive and see if all this is worth it. Alright, so I am back. Yesterday was Saturday when I was working on that thing, and today is Sunday morning. And I went out and been driving the truck around for a little bit, and oh, okay. The brakes still feel like doo-doo. So what I'm going to do, because I was looking it up online trying to figure out what's wrong with it, and what I was coming across is it could be the proportioning valve, or it could just be the rear drums not being adjusted right, which sounds pretty likely because I installed them. And I don't know anything about drums aside from what I learned installing those. So we're going to bring it in here. And I'm going to, this time, adjust the drums by getting them to the point, tightening them all the way up to the point where they don't turn freely at all, like they're locked, and then backing them off from there until they spin with a little bit of tug. So the first time I just adjusted them until I felt like they were tugging a little bit, so I'm going to do it the other way, and that should get them adjusted, because what I was reading was that the proportioning valve won't trigger the front brakes until the back ones start to trigger a little bit. So probably just need to adjust the brakes. As you can see, it's not even snowing, it's actually freezing rain. It's all ice on the driveway here. Pretty nasty stuff. I had a hard time. I stopped at a light. It had a slight incline to it where I stopped, and I couldn't move. Fortunately, there's nobody behind me, and I had to back up like 10 feet. Get a running start. By the time I got into the intersection, the light was turning yellow, so I was just holding everybody up, but I couldn't move even with the LSD rear end in there. So now what I have to do, I like this, having this garage just, 2 doors, and technically it has 4 bays, but we only use 2. But the only downside to this whole setup is there's only one, the driveway's only 1 car wide, so what I'm going to do is get in the truck, drive it all the way down there to a daycare parking lot, park my truck there, and then walk back here, grab this, drive it over, park it there, bring the truck in, and then walk over and grab this. Otherwise, I'd have to start all 3 cars up and back them out and rotate stuff, and that's no fun. And I go get cars switched around, get the truck in the garage, get back wheels off, and then hopefully after that the brake pedal will feel nice. I went ahead to buy more kerosene because I ran out towards the end of yesterday. I hate winter. I hate it with a fiery passion. This sucks. If there wasn't a bunch of snow all over the place, we'd just be able to stick a car in the grass to switch cars around. That's what we do pretty much year round, except for when there's snow on the ground. So when there's snow on the ground, you gotta play musical cars just to get 1 car in the garage, and it really sucks. I hate winter. Alright, I got all the cars switched out and everything. We're all good to go. Had the heater running in here for probably about 30 minutes while I was inside eating and stuff. So it's all warm in here and ready to go. So now, go get the truck jacked up, pull wheels off, readjust the rear drum brakes, and then I'm also going to check the torque on my U-bolts while I've got it up in the air and there's no weight on the U-bolts. And then we'll go out, drive it, and see how it does, see if my pedal's at least better, and hopefully we'll have, hopefully it'll be at least to where it was before, swapping the rear end. Okay, I've got the U-bolts torqued down there pretty good. There's only one on that side that was not all the way snug down, but even that one was still pretty good. Went in and adjusted the brakes, adjusted them quite a bit. I basically cranked the adjusters down until the drums were really hard to put on, and then backed them off from there. Tested it to make sure it still moved fairly freely by hand. If they're a little bit over tightened, they will wear in and be okay. So I'd rather have them be a little bit too tight and a little bit too loose. So they're all adjusted and ready to go. The thing's ready to be started and take it for its first test drive after the brakes are adjusted. I adjusted them a lot, so hopefully that was what was making the brakes not function right. Hopefully in the next week or so I'll have some fuel, all the fuel system stuff will be here, maybe even the exhaust stuff, I'm not really sure. We'll be able to do a nice big unboxing of everything. But I think this is where I'm going to end the video. I guess in the next video I'll let you guys know how the brake adjustment worked, or I'll put it in the description of the video just so that I can get this video done, because I know it's stretched out a lot further than I planned on it going. And I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I want to thank you guys very much for being here. I appreciate all the comments I've been getting lately from you guys. I really enjoy it. So if you want to leave a comment, just letting me know that you enjoyed the video or whatever, just say hi, whatever. I don't really care. Leave a comment below. I really like talking to you guys. So with all that said, that's going to be the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.